This morning at 9 a.m., while everyone was watching the courthouse steps and analyzing every social media post, the real earthquake was happening behind closed doors in the back offices of three major banks. What happened in those offices in the span of a few hours could accomplish what years of legal battles couldn't, bringing a billionaire empire to its knees. We're not talking about politics today. We're not talking about tweets or rallies or what some pundit said on cable news. We're talking about cold, hard, cash, or more accurately, the sudden absence of it. After 3 decades of tracking financial criminals who thought they could hide their money, who moved assets from New York to the Cayman Islands to Switzerland, I can tell you one fundamental truth that never changes. Banks don't care about your public image, they don't care about your poll numbers, and they certainly don't care about how many followers you have. Banks care about one thing and one thing only: risk. And when a bank looks at a client, even a famous one, even a powerful one, and sees someone who owes more money than they have accessible, they don't hold a committee meeting to debate the optics. They lock the doors. They freeze the accounts. They protect themselves. Let me walk you through exactly what freezing an account actually means in practical terms, why the word bankruptcy is suddenly being whispered in legal hallways across the country, and what happens when someone who has built their entire identity on being rich suddenly cannot pay their bills. I've prosecuted powerful people before. They all follow the same pattern. They act tough. They act invincible. They wear expensive suits and arrive in motorcades and project an image of unlimited resources. But the moment their credit card gets declined at a restaurant, the moment their lawyer's retainer check bounces, the moment the reality of their financial situation becomes undeniable, the entire show collapses. The defense team has spent years telling anyone who would listen that they have unlimited funds, that money is no object, that they can fight forever. Today, the bank records tell a very different story, and it's a story that should terrify everyone on that legal team. Before we start using scary words like bankruptcy and insolvency, let's keep this simple and talk about what's actually happening in terms anyone can understand. In the real world, away from the legal jargon, we call this a cash crunch. Think about your own budget for a second. You have bills that need to be paid, rent or mortgage, utilities, groceries, and you have money in the bank to cover those bills. As long as the money coming in is higher than the money going out, you're fine. You sleep well at night. But right now, the defense is fighting legal battles in multiple states simultaneously. Lawyers cost millions of dollars. Bonds for appeal cost millions of dollars. Expert witnesses charge thousands of dollars per hour. Normally, a wealthy businessman pays for all of this out of operating cash, the money that flows through their business accounts like water. It's like checking your wallet before you go to dinner. But the new reports coming out of these banks say that cash isn't there anymore, or if it is there, he can't access it, which from a practical standpoint amounts to the same thing. Here's the timeline, and it's critically important that you understand the order of these events because they tell a story. 2 days ago, his legal team went into court and admitted publicly that they couldn't secure a bond. They basically stood before a judge and said, "We don't have the liquid cash ready to post." Yesterday, we learned through financial filings that a major bank put a hold on his business accounts. Now, what exactly is a hold? A hold isn't a political statement. The bank manager didn't wake up yesterday morning and decide to be vindictive. It's what banks do when their computer systems, their risk assessment algorithms, flag an account as high risk. They're scared they won't get paid back. They see the mounting lawsuits. They see the judgments being handed down. They see the liabilities piling up, and they make a calculated business decision. Stop the money from moving until we figure out if this client can actually meet their obligations. Now, I know what some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking he's been in debt before. He's filed for bankruptcy multiple times. He's famous for getting out of financial jams. He always wiggles free. That's a fair point, and I hear it. But this time is fundamentally different, and here's why. There's a legal concept called piercing the corporate veil, and I need to explain this in plain English because lawyers love to make it sound more complicated than it actually is. Normally, your personal money and your business money are kept in 2 completely separate buckets. Bucket A is your business. your company, your corporate entity. Bucket B is your personal assets, your home, your savings account, your personal investments. If the business fails, if the company goes under, Bucket B is supposed to be safe. Creditors can't come after your house to pay for business debts. That's the normal rule, and it's designed to encourage people to take business risks without losing everything. But there's a major exception to that rule. If a judge decides that you've been mixing those buckets, taking cash from the business to pay for personal expenses, or moving money between accounts to hide it from creditors, or treating your business like your personal piggy bank, the judge can smash those buckets together. They can pierce that corporate veil and say, actually, it's all one pile of assets, and creditors can go after all of it. Why does this matter right this second? Because the banks are looking at these accounts and they're freezing everything. They're not making a distinction between business accounts and personal accounts. They're treating the entire financial empire as one giant liability. They're worried that if they leave one account accessible, the money will get drained to pay some other creditor and they'll be left holding nothing. This brings us to the word that everyone is afraid to say out loud: bankruptcy. If the court forces him into what's called involuntary bankruptcy, and yes, that's a real thing where creditors can petition to force you into bankruptcy, he loses control of everything. Right now, despite all the legal problems, he still decides what checks get signed. He still controls which bills get paid and which ones get delayed. But in bankruptcy, a trustee takes over. Stop and think about that for a second. A court-appointed official, basically a government accountant who doesn't care about your ego or your reputation, would sit at the desk and make every financial decision. They would decide what bills get paid first. They would decide if the private jet gets to keep flying or if it has to be sold off. They would decide if the lawyers get their retainer check this month or if they have to wait. It's a total loss of control. And for someone who has built their entire identity on being the boss, on being in charge, on never answering to anyone, that's not just a financial nightmare. It's a psychological one. So what does this mean right now, today, this week? It means if he cannot access his accounts, he cannot post bond. A bond is essentially a promise backed by money or property. But courts don't take IOUs. They don't accept promises. They want actual cash or deeds to actual property. If he can't post bond, the legal machinery starts moving in a very different direction. The sheriff can start seizing property. We're talking about physical things: buildings, golf courses, private residences. Let's be absolutely real for a second. If you or I owed $1 million and tried to play games to avoid paying it, the bank wouldn't wait 6 months. They wouldn't give us 30-day extensions. They wouldn't let us go on television to complain about how unfair it all is. They would take the house. They would repossess the car. They would garnish wages. This is the real test of whether the legal system actually applies equally to everyone. Today, the banks made a decision. They froze the accounts not because they're political actors, not because they're part of some conspiracy, but because they're protecting their own money. They want to make sure there's something left to collect when all the legal dust settles. The money always tells the truth when everything else is noise. People lie. Press releases lie. Social media posts lie. But bank statements don't lie. The banks did their math today, and their math says this is someone who can't pay their bills. Watch what happens next, because we're about to see whether the rules really apply to everyone, or whether having enough fame and enough followers means you play by a different set of rules entirely.